Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today I'm looking at a small press by the name of Oni Press that was created in 1997. I've talked about Oni Press before, particularly about this book here, The Sixth Gun. So I just wanted to go over a few of the smaller titles and just talk a little bit about those. So I'll be looking at four titles in total from Oni Press. Now, an oni, for those that it's from Japanese folklore. It's a sort of like an ogre, a demon that causes all kinds of catastrophe, even eats people, a creature of horror. But as time went on, he sort of changed. Some stories changed, and then he became a protector and a guardian. The oni, protector and guardian. In either case, I don't know why they called this particular the Bob Schreck and Joe Nozmak, who created Oni, why they chose the name Oni, because it doesn't seem to have anything to do with sequential art or telling stories. But maybe they just like the name, and so we have Oni Press, as I say, from 1997. They're probably one of their better known works, and they've done some stuff. Is Scott Pilgrim, that came out of Oni Press, but they've also done work with Kevin Smith for his Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob. They did do Rick and Morty for a while. The main focus at the beginning was to tell stories that both this Bob and Joe wanted to hear about or tell. Thrillers, action, romance, things that were outside of the superhero genre. Really wanted to do very little to do with the superhero genre. And in, what is it, 2019, I believe it was? Yeah, 2019, they merged with a place called Lion Forge, and then it became Oni Lion Forge Press. And as I say, they've released a number of titles, still a small time publisher. So let's go through some of these titles. Now, as I say, I've already done The Sixth Gun by Cullen Bunn, and I did that on one of my very early videos when the sound was off and what have you. So, but I won't go over all of the details there. But other than to say, The Sixth Gun is a combination of a Western supernatural story. There are these six guns. Actually, they're more like artifacts, and each one has a powerful ability on its own. But when you get all six together, it can create and release a greater power. The story, and it's a 50 plus issue story, is about the various groups or individuals trying to gather up the guns for their own purposes. It's a great story. I do highly recommend it. I was fortunate enough when I bought this collection back in the winter of 2021 that it had all of the trade paperbacks. So I have a chance, and I have had a chance to read it at least once and parts of it a second time. I do recommend The Sixth Gun, but I'm not going to go much more into it because, as I say, there was a very early video that I did about The Sixth Gun. So we're going to move on to Queen and Country. Queen and Country. It's a story written by Greg Rucka, and I do like Greg Rucka's material. And he was inspired by a show called The Sandbaggers. I don't know The Sandbaggers, and I haven't taken the time to take a look at The Sandbaggers, but that's okay because that was just his inspiration for this. And what is this about? Well, basically, we're following this character, Tara Chase, who works for the SIS. That's the Secret Intelligence Service for the UK. Sort of like the CIA. They're also known as MI6, Military Intelligence Section 6. And they do espionage stuff, as I say, much like the CIA in America. And this particular story arc, and it's a series of story arcs, and the series itself ran for 32 issues and had three mini-series called Queen and Country Declassified, which told a little bit of backstory about some of the characters and some of the situations. So as I say, we're basically following Tara Chase, who works for the SIS, and the missions that she's on and the after effects of the mission. The first arc, which I've read, is about an assassination, and then the attempts of people that trying to assassinate the assassinator. And Tara Chase is the main focal point on it. She's not the only one. She's involved also with as I said, the SAS, and there's all of her collective fellow minders. That's what they're called. There's three of them, and they're under the jurisdiction of one other, who's under the jurisdiction of another, who's under the jurisdiction of the other. So part of it is the action adventure of the espionage situation going on, and then part of it is also about the internal politics within SIS and the various divisions, and then their relations relationship with other organizations like the CIA and what have you. So overall, when I look at Tara Chase, unfortunately, there's nothing really here about her that strikes me as being, something that I'm truly interested in. What a unique character, because she doesn't come off as being a unique character. She doesn't talk a lot. She's very stoic. And when she comes home from her job, she comes home to an empty apartment with an empty fridge. It's like I've heard this story before about the espionage, the spy or whoever is work is everything. So there's no time left for an outside life. And that seems to be the case with Tara Chase. That's about all we get to really know about her. And as I say, I've seen that character before. So I'm not really that involved or invested in this character. And as for all of the people at the head office or all the bureaucracy and the politics that go along there, it's like, I could not tell the difference between one person and another. The artwork is by the guy by the name of Steve Rolston, at least for this first arc. It's a very simple and clean look, and I'm not going to blame him for this because a simple and clean can work. But when we go into the office and we talk to the various different people, I can barely tell any of them apart. There's they got black hair. They're men, well, white men with black hair and black suits, and they're talking. And there's not enough difference in the way that they present themselves or what they say or how they say it that makes me see any difference in them. So it says, how did that meeting go with this guy? Well, I don't know. I think that character had 3 meetings. Which guy are you talking about? They all kind of blend together. There's nothing really remarkable about them. And this is what I found about the story itself, is that I did not find it very remarkable. When I read an espionage or a spy thriller, I want there to be tension. I want to feel that tension. I want to be eager to find out what happens next and get to the, read the whole story with that kind of level of tension. And I just did not find that here in this particular opening arc. Now, it was the Eisner Award winner, in what year was that? I don't have the year. Eisner Award winner for the Best New Series, I think it was 2002. And when it comes down to awards, you may disagree with the awards or say, I don't care about them, like Oscars or Hugos or Eisners even, and not care about it. But it means that, to me, that a group of people that are involved in the industry found that this was a particularly interesting book to read. So even if I disagree with it, there's a collective that does find it interesting. So in that respect, it's either worth a read or a watch in the case of a film. So Eisner Award winning for best new series, you think it'd be all that very exciting, but as I say, I didn't find it very tense or exciting. I read the first arc, which was fine. But it didn't inspire me to continue reading Queen and Country. I think the best thing about Queen and Country, this first arc, and it's not a bad thing to say this because it's the covers by Tim Sale. So this is the first issue. This is the first issue. If there's going to be any kind of spec whatsoever, it would be on the first issue, the first appearance of Tara Chase. It has been optioned for a film, but that means absolutely nothing. Even the Sixth Gun was optioned for a film or a series that didn't materialize. Although you can watch the very first pilot episode for the Sixth Gun on YouTube, which is exciting. I watched it and I enjoyed it. It's like, too bad this wasn't made into a series. But, if you get a chance, check that one out. So this was optioned for a movie as well. But as I say, that doesn't mean anything. And this is the first issue. As for finding the rest of the issues, well, I don't think you'll find too many in the dollar bin. This is my favorite of the Tim Sale covers for the 4 issues that he does. I don't think you'll find them too often in the dollar bin, but they're not expensive books. It's just that the print run would have been lower, so you might find scattered ones here or there. If I'm ever going to read any more Queen and Country, it would be, just be picking up randomly in the dollar bin, so I can't see. It may develop into a more interesting character as time goes on. This does happen. Sometimes you start off with a show or a book or whatever, and it's like, I'm not really invested in these characters or the situation, but then things develop, and then all of a sudden you find yourself very interested in these characters and these situations. So, but for the first opening arc, I thought it was fine. but it didn't really, to me, it didn't really bring anything new or different to the table. And I didn't feel any of the tension that I would like to feel if I'm going to read an espionage or thriller style book. As I said, though, it's an okay read. I'm not recommending the read, but it's an okay read, and I'm keeping it because I really like these Tim Sale covers. I like Tim Sale's artwork, so that's Queen and Country. The third one I'm talking about is a thing called Shot Callers, and it was written by Gary Phillips and illustrated by Brett Weldell or Weldeal. Well, I'm not sure. A four-issue series, a crime story. So first of all, if you like this cover and this kind of artwork, then you'll like the interior artwork as well, because it's all based on this sort of thing. So kind of a sketchy sort of look to it, a little rough, which fits in with the story here. Gary Phillips is an author. He's written a number of, a novelist, I should say. He's written a number of books, like a couple of dozen of books, and they're basically crime books, hard-boiled detective, sort of detective noir, set in Los Angeles, and sort of got that gritty feel. But as I say, he's written like 24 books. And when a novelist gets a chance to write a book, or even when a screenwriter like Kevin Smith or something like that, they get a chance to write a comic book, I'm interested. Writing a novel takes a great deal of time and energy and commitment. And so what do we have? And he's successful enough that he's got 24 of them. What is this story about in a comic book form? So this is a basically sort of like a revenge story. Nia is the protagonist, and she's a thief. They've committed a heist. There's a group of them, and then she's betrayed. And when she comes out of her situation and says, "Hey, I've been betrayed," she goes on a revenge kick to try and get her cut of the money, and also to exact a certain amount of revenge. What's interesting and that story is something that I'm sure many of you have read or heard or watched before, and I'm going to recommend, where is it? If you like those kind of stories, then I recommend watching the film Payback with Mel Gibson. This was a great movie. I really enjoyed it, and it's right along those lines of, somebody been done wrong and goes out looking for revenge. Payback was a great film for that. So this story is, again, just like that sort of thing. I liked Nia, the protagonist of it. She's driven just like so many other characters are driven, but it's the way that she interacts not only with other thieves and criminals involved in her pursuit, but also with the regular everyday people who had nothing to do with it, and the way that she handles those situations and manipulates things to get what she wants, to get where she's going, and find out all the information. It's a good little revenge story, but it's really nothing more than that. It's sometimes the story would just, certain elements about the mystery or the clues that she picks up to get where she's going. They're not revealed until the end, to the final book, where she explains how this clue helped her. But when you're reading about the clue, like in issue 2 or something like that, you have no idea that that's what the clue was indicating. So there's some of that, but for the most part, it's a fine revenge type of story. Nothing more. Again, as far as finding this book, you will find it if you can in a dollar bin, but it's really not worth more than $1 as far as finance. I mean, as far as the story is concerned, and I do like the artwork. It's a different style of art, and it works well with this book, and it certainly has a better tone than, say, the stuff that I found in Queen and Country, a tone that matches the book. So it was a decent enough revenge crime story, but it's not going to say, well, this is the best I've ever read. And in fact, as I said, I think given the choice, if somebody said, you can continue to read this multiple times, or you can watch the film Payback, and I'd say, I'll watch the film Payback, thanks very much. Because this is a good story, but it's, just right up in there, that same sort of type of story. And the last book that I'm going to look at is a book called Jenny Finn. This is a weird one. This is like a fever dream by Mike Mignola. And what Troy Nixie does the art for the first three issues, and then there's a fourth artist that does the final issue. This was a strange book. First of all, when it comes down to the publication of this, is supposed to be a four-issue series, and only the first two were released by Oni. And then there's this huge gap of time, 6 or 7 years, where there's no part three or part four. Eventually, they are written and illustrated, and they're collected by Boom Studios in a trade paperback. I do have that one here too. Yeah. So eventually, the ending of this is, it has all four issues. It has the first and the second, and then it completes it with issues number 3 and 4. Why there was such a delay in the publishing or the story, I really don't know. I mean, maybe Mike Mignola was, not interested, or only said we were not going to publish, and there was, situations about the legal entanglement. I really I don't know. But anyways, the first two stories are written, as I say, by Mike Mignola, illustrated by I keep forgetting his name, Troy Nixie, and there's only the two issues, and then you got to read the follow up. Dark Horse apparently did another four-issue set of Jenny Finn and colored the interior, because it's all a black and white book, as was Shot Callers, as was Queen and Country, black and white. Black and white, and they did a color version of this somewhere around 2017 or so. I do like the black and white. I don't know that color would make it any better, but I do like the black and white. As far as the story is concerned, well, it's a bizarre story. It's a Cthulhu type of story, but it throws me off. It's like, okay, so here we are in Victorian England. This is a poor part of town where there's sailors and fishmongers and prostitutes, and it's very crowded, and there's a lot of people in the city. And there's some killer going around. He's killing the prostitutes, and that's upsetting the people in the city, and they're concerned about all of that sort of stuff. Not a lot of, legal, not a lot of cops and things like that showing up. So it's a sort of the crowd mentality. They're looking for whoever might be this killer, and they'll track down whoever might be a suspect or whatever. And while this is going on, there's this strange illness that shows up that turns people into fish-like creatures. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? Well, I'm going to give you an example through an illustration here. So, seemingly randomly, these people, where's the best one? Down in the corner here. They turn into, like, they start getting some scales, and fish things come out of their face, and tentacles, and jellyfish type of things that are, coming out of their skin, and the weird little fish that all start walking, well, not walking around, but you'll see dead fish scattered about, and every once in a while they go doom, doom. And the people, when somebody bursts into a fish-like disease, rather than being startled and going, wow, what's happening? That's just like, he's turned into a fish, he's got that fish disease. Like, it's a common everyday thing. And it's like, it's not, though. He's got fish. I got fish on my shirt. It's fish. It's just very weird, and they just take it all in stride. They're more concerned about the killer and have absolutely no concern about, people turning into fish creatures. Amidst all of this, there's this gal by the name of Jenny Finn. She's a young gal. She's pretty, and she's walking through the town, and this guy named Joe, just your average Joe from the country who's come to the city, he wants to protect Jenny Finn from all of these things that are going around, especially, the mad killer is out and about. There's this strange fish disease, and Jenny Finn says, "Don't you worry about me, I'm wicked." And this is where we go with the story, with this sort of situation. We got the slasher going on, we got fish people going on, we got this young Jenny Finn who claims she's wicked, and people seem to know her now. Jenny Finn, Jenny Finn. There's little songs and poems about Jenny Finn. So the story is, based on that, trying to draw all of these elements together. And it does draw all of the elements together. And it is more of a Cthulhu style of story. But it threw me off the first time. This is the second issue. It threw me off the first time that I read this because I'm good with Cthulhu type of stories, and I like Mignola's stuff. I was reading some of his Hellboy material by this point in time, like because I just picked this up probably around the same time that I got the rest of the Hellboy in 2021. So I like the story. I like Cthulhu stories. It was odd because the people reacting to this fish disease didn't seem to have much of a reaction at all, and so I was thrown for a loop. Why are they not reacting to this? I mean, if this was a genuine Cthulhu type of story, they would be like, oh, they'd be flabbergasted, they'd be shocked, and they'd be living in a certain degree of fear, but that doesn't happen. So it sort of breaks away a little bit from that Cthulhu sense of horror because this fish disease seems so commonplace. Overall, after I read it, and I read all 4 issues because I was happy enough to get that copy as well, is it worth a read? Well, it's an oddball. Um, I liked the illustrations, and the story was, as I said, Cthulhu-esque, and I liked it on the second reading more so than I did on the first. It seemed, like getting over that first little part about the people not reacting to the fish, which seemed to disturb me for reading the story. The story does pull all of these elements together, and it is kind of interesting, and it is in the Mike Mignola type of story as well. And it is an oddball story about Jenny Finn. And I liked it. Am I going to recommend it? Well, it's such a strange little story. You may not be interested in it. If you really like Cthulhu type of stories, I think that you'd get a kick out of reading Jenny Finn and the illustrations. I do like the illustrations, sort of that black one. Reminded me a little bit of Rick Geary, some of the illustrations in here. So I liked it. And the book itself, Jenny Finn, has been republished in a number of ways. As I said, there was this book here by Boom, but then Dark Horse did a color version of it. Then there's the hardcover, that collects all 4 issues of this size. So it's been reprinted a number of times. So there seems to be some interest in it. As far as any of that other stuff, the spec investment, no, I don't see that happening either. I don't think anybody's going to adapt Jenny Finn to the screen anytime. It's already a strange book. As it's going to have a very niche and closed little audience, so I can't see it, making it to the big screen. I could be wrong, but it's an odd little story. I liked it enough, so as I said, but with all those reservations about my recommendation. So anyways, that's it for the 4 titles I've got of Oni Press. I didn't think either one of them, other than the Sixth Gun, which I talked about already, it was worth an entire video on its own. But these are 4 little titles that you might be interested in looking at. And then as I say, if you do happen to find them in the dollar bin, you might be inclined to pick up and take a look if any of this inspires you. Let me know what you think. If you like Cthulhu stories, if you like some of this artwork, or if you like Gary Phillips' books, if you read any. Anyways, liking. I don't like to do all the like, subscribe, and all that sort of stuff, but it does help the channel. So I will say like, comment, and subscribe. And in the meantime, be good to yourself and be good to others, and we'll talk again soon.